to have you. I'm Elise Chernogel. I'm the Vice President of Marketing at Better Mind. So I help to facilitate and bring these conversations together. And my colleague, Alexandria Glaze, Alex, is going to be co-facilitating with me on the fly today. So let's get started. This is just a highlight of what we're going to cover today. Some brief introductions, and this really is a forum. So please chat, say hello, introduce yourselves. If you see a colleague or someone you know, you can DM them and see how they're doing. But we'll be going through a conversation with Kevin and Chris, first centered around this stressed out and stopping out, report and information. We'll go into OCCC's philosophy of care, their delivery model, and talk about some of what we've learned in this initial pilot with Better Mind. So let's continue. So like I said, I'm Elise, technical difficulties. Doug couldn't facilitate today. And then we have Emily, who is the point person for Oklahoma City since day one, and Emily will be helping to facilitate some chat, facilitate the chat. So if you have questions, especially around anything specific to Better Mind, she'll facilitate that. And then just to start to give a little bit of context to who we are, because who you are really matters. We were founded, and I'm so sorry if you're hearing my children have walked in and are crying, but they are with my mother, their caregiver, so I apologize. They'll be leaving in just a second. Back to Cody's story. We were founded before the pandemic, before online therapy was so common, and it really stems out of Cody's experience as an undergraduate in a mental health crisis, and the role that finding that on-campus counseling center served in him being able to come out to himself and his community and his family as gay, to persist, to thrive, and then eventually to find Better Mind and be able to provide that same safe, accessible mental health support to students just like him. And incredibly proud to support a very large group of community colleges across the country. So 70 plus and growing. So OCCC, we see you there right in the middle of the country. But it's a really, as you know, it's a really unique community of colleges and universities serving a student population that also has specific needs. So excited to get your thoughts and learn more about what you're seeing on your campus. And then Chris and Kevin, this is informal, so I won't read your CVs, but I will ask you to introduce yourselves. Chris, why don't we start with you?
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name is, I was making sure I was not muted. But hello, everybody. My name is Chris Snoddy. I am the Associate Vice President for Student Success. I have been here for a little bit over 5 years. I have the opportunity and the pleasure of working with and supervising a few different departments, which include our recreation and fitness area, which also manages our food pantry and clothes closet areas. Kevin's area, which he'll speak a little bit more about, student accessibility and support. Our veterans area, Veterans Services Department, our student life department, as well as our international student services. We have a opioid prevention and stimulants prevention grant that I help to supervise, as well as our student conduct area as well. I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything. Hopefully I'm not. But I also get a chance to kind of have a dotted line and work with our recruitment, our admissions, records and graduation area, because obviously two different sides of student affairs, enrollment management, and more the programmatic sides. But I get a chance to straddle the fence there and work with some wonderful people.
I suppose I should have asked you what you don't do. I'm just kidding. Well, student success, I mean, all encompassing. So that's really useful. And then Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role and maybe even how it kind of intersects. I know we'll get into this a little bit, but how it intersects with Chris on campus, right? Where you two sort of find the common work.
Right. Well, Chris is my supervisor, as he said. I'm over student accessibility and support, which encompasses counseling and disability services here on campus, which puts me in charge of pretty much the counseling and the online counseling that we now have with BetterMind even.
Excellent. And then anything that either of you want to comment? I know we put the school itself as the third participant here, but any commentary on top of the bullets there of who this, the student population is, who the campus is?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share. Like I said, I've been here Kevin's been here for a little bit longer than I. However, we've been an institution of higher education for that went through a lot of changes over the past several years. And, our leadership, I think, is settling in. Been about 2 years since we've gotten some new at the top leadership. And so I think there's some things that are settling in. And right before the pandemic, we had made the decision to go to 8-week courses primarily. Still keep our 16-week courses, but obviously, right as we were making those plans to shift more towards the 8-week term, primarily courses, then we got hit with the pandemic. And so we were launching into that at the same time as we were just getting to the thick of the pandemic. So that was fun. But it also let us know how nimble we could be. I'm sure a lot of institutions share that same story, how nimble we could be to get a lot of our classes, mostly all of our classes, online, with the exception of some, such as within our health professions, where you have to be in person for certain things, labs and things of that nature. But so we've been an institution of higher education that has been in transition a lot. We've had an abnormal year, which I know Kevin will be able to talk to you a little bit more about that a little bit later on. But we're definitely seeing what we can do as we adapt to certain challenges. And I think a lot of the institutions around the country are adapting to challenges as we approach the quote unquote enrollment cliff or whatnot, trying to make sure that we can adjust and make sure that we keep our enrollment up and bounce back in other areas and continue to grow in other areas.
Yes, yes, that certainly resonates. So a little bit of context around this, and I think this is actually directly tied to what you were just sharing about Chris. A lot of change, a lot of right, the enrollment cliff, and then the challenges today that students themselves are facing, right? They're sort of, the institutions have their own challenges, and then students do, and those are changing, and they are changing together. So I know we link to this report in all of our promotion for today's forum, but are just highlighting a few pieces here, in particular, this role of mental health, emotional stress, personal mental health, as the top 2 barriers for why students have considered stopping out. Kevin, Chris, what are you hearing and seeing from your students related to this and their challenges?
Yeah, this pretty much aligns with what we have with our student body. Stress, anxiety is always the highest number of incidents, I guess, that we see with our students. Depression, of course, and then just pretty much that follows along with what this says. So we see the same thing that this report has found, I think, in our own population.
I guess from my standpoint, I wanted to just kind of touch upon. I talked a little bit earlier, really kind of speaking from my enrollment management side, but the thing is that sometimes when you are approaching, you're trying to look at numbers and you're looking at how we can get more students to the college, you also want to turn introspectively and see how can we keep students at the college.
Mm.
And obviously, this is one of the ways that we do that by providing the services that we can, because we know students are stressed out. We know that they're anxiety filled. We know that they're going through things that would cause them to say, "What is my purpose here on earth? What is my purpose of going on? I'm struggling with classes. I'm struggling with relationships. I don't know if I can continue on in classes because my family needs me to work." And that's a large segment of our population, large segment of our students are struggling. They're grappling with, how do I pay bills with my family? How do I pay bills for myself? I've got this 2-year-old child that needs nourishment, but I'm trying to think about myself in this long-term goal, which I'm only taking classes once or twice, one or two classes at a time. And that speaks directly to our population, because most of our population are taking classes here at OCCC is part-time. We have a lot of what a lot of people would say transient students, because maybe they'll take a class here, they take a class there, and we're trying to keep them. So we're marketing to our students, but we're also marketing to parents and saying one of the benefits for our college is that we haven't raised tuition in about, Kevin, I think it's about 8-9 years. We haven't raised tuition 8 or 9 years because we're keeping that in mind. Whereas our competitors, 3% increase, 5% increase. We want students to realize the affordability because we want to take some of that stress off. And so that's one way, that's entryway, but we also want to let them know about the flexibility of our counseling services. We have in person, but we also have, virtual. So you can do this at your schedule. We have counselors here through Better Mind that are willing to help you, and you don't even have to come through us. And that's one thing that was big, and the selling point to us was trying to find out flexibility for our students. And so these things that you have displayed right here that definitely have been fitting with what we have been seeing for several years. And so the ongoing battle is to how to best facilitate addressing those needs in the midst of personnel changes and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I thought that, I remember we had some conversation around this, the summary or the bullet points here from this Gallup Lumina report. And the last bullet here, I think, is really interesting. I wanted to get, your thoughts here, which is, so students who have considered stopping out, more than half of them rate their school's mental health resources positively. And this is an interesting, right, perception of a service versus actual utilization of a service. That's a whole different question, or that's a whole different. So Kevin, Chris, maybe both of you, one of you, observations on utilization of support services in general.
We have had kind of a strange year, actually, because it says that there's this many students with these issues, but our counseling numbers are down, and I don't know if it's unique to us or what, but I think Chris said yesterday when we were talking about it, something about the utilization. If they don't have a negative experience, then it's positive. So maybe that's what it is. There's just not as many students who have taken part. So they hadn't had a negative experience, so it must be positive when they're choosing between the two.
Yeah. I'll say something that I think we're going to touch on a little bit later, but particularly when we think of mental health support and the role of something like therapy or counseling, it's a very targeted form of student support, right? All of the data supports that actually a relatively small population or percentage of the population needs or benefits from that particular intervention. And so right, it's making sure that that group is aware of, finds it, uses it. We'll get to a little bit more of that later. So, and just for a little bit of context related to this idea of targeted student support, the work out of Penn State Center for Collegiate Mental Health. I mean, the point here is sort of that you can't even fully read or see, right? All of those presenting concerns. There are so many, from self-esteem, confidence, eating, body image, anger management, drugs, autism spectrum, religion, spirituality. There's so many reasons. Chris, you were speaking to this just when you were describing the different demands that so many of your students face, right? The role of parent, individuating from your family. What is your role in your family still? You may be bringing money home to support the larger family unit still. It's very common.
Yeah.
So all of the reasons someone might show up at your doorstep, Kevin, right? Very, very wide, complex. And I think, again, to this, just calling out for the need for a really targeted intervention that is individualized. CCMH reported from the last full year that they did their work research on. Most common number one, student comes in, could be that they're referred, connected to other support, right? Tutoring or other things like that. Average of about 5. And then an absolutely tremendous range. Because if you go back to the presenting concerns, you know, Kevin, if I come to you with some anxiety around the academic demands, probably going to require some different support than dealing with, you know, abuse in my background, trauma in my family, right? How many sessions, how long should we meet together? What does supporting me look like? Really different. And then Better Minds data reflects this very similarly. So when we look across our campus partners, work with over 100 campuses across the country, very similar in terms of average number of sessions, the range. And just to what I was speaking of, the Healthy Minds Network does some wonderful reporting and research around this. And clearly, right, most students are not going to use counseling services. It is a targeted, individualized support. And the students that might need it will need very different amounts, types of therapy intervention. So we'll get into this a little bit when we learn more here about your philosophy of care and how Better Mind is supplementing and integrating into that. So Kevin, tell us a little bit. I believe it's SAS, yeah? Not
Yeah.
SAS, but SAS. I like that. Tell us a little bit more about SAS.
We've been kind of evolving over the last few years. We used to have quite a few areas that were under me, but we've kind of weeded them out, and now I'm just down to just disability services and counseling services. We have 2 people who work in the disability side, and then currently we have 3 counseling positions. We have been, and I don't know if this is everywhere or if it's unique to us, but we've had a really hard time filling counseling positions here at our college. So
Folks can in the chat drop in whether this resonates with you, but anecdotally, I do not think you're alone, Kevin, but keep going.
I didn't think I was, but
No.
you know, you never know. Which is in fact how we ended up with Better Mind at all, was because we could not fill this 3rd counseling position. And then we had another one vacate. We couldn't get that one filled. We had 1 counselor and all of these students who needed counseling services. So that's what brought us into looking at virtual help. And then it led us eventually then to Better Mind, which seemed to be the best fit for us anyway, for what our students needed and for diverse times and diverse counselors and just the overall services that's offered, brought us to to you all. And that's kind of what, I guess that's what this slide is, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. We just kind of talked through all of that here. So we can kind of keep moving on. Tell me a little bit. I think one thing that a lot of the campuses that we partner with, that everyone is a very different model. It's based on your budget. It's based on the students that you serve, where you are in the country. Like there's just so many different dimensions. You all embrace a short-term approach to counseling. That's the sort of language you use. Can you talk a little bit about, as an institution, how did you land on that, right? Is that like sort of, this is what we offer and this is how we provide that to you? And Chris, you can chime in as well, because I know this does very directly connect to the resourcing, right? That you have to put behind this, right? If we offer long-term counseling, well, there's a different resourcing that needs to be put behind this. So tell us about the short-term model.
Right. Well, we allow our students, or we offer our students 8 sessions typically. There are opportunities for them to have more than 8 with a counselor here on campus. But we found that generally 8 in a short-term model works well. Our philosophy is that if a student needs something more long-term, then they probably should go out to the community, because they're only going to be here 2 or 3 years, which is all that we would be able to see a student anyway. So, so we do encourage them to go out, and we help them find people in the community who can work with them on a long-term basis. And so that way we keep it to the smaller ones. Now with our online, we had to do a few, even fewer, but we do offer an opportunity for them to expand if they need.
I wanted to touch base upon that as well. I have the opportunity of serving as the chair for our behavioral intervention team, which Kevin serves on as well. We call it CHAT, Campus Help Awareness Team. And with that, you know, we're conversing about different reports, different referrals that we have received, where it's a potential for, you know, danger to self or danger to others, assessing risk, and identifying how we can intervene. And so sometimes what we have learned, and even, you know, at a previous institution where I worked at, is that the best approach to someone who is going through depression or distress of any kind is to establish and continue that rapport with that person who has made that first contact, or who the student reached out to first. And so sometimes they may not necessarily take on counseling because they're comfortable talking with the faculty or staff member that they have established rapport with. And, you know, that particular faculty or staff member obviously needs to be able to try to be a bridge, but sometimes they can't force them there. Obviously, if there is a situation to danger of self or others, you know, it takes it to another level. But sometimes just to be a listening ear, that will be sufficient for that particular student. But then we also have what we call, you know, Kevin's area develops every year, we call a community resource guide. And that is in print, and it is online through the website as well. One thing that we're trying to do now is not only just have the community resource guide, but to make sure, not only just to make sure that the links and the phone numbers work every year, but to establish relationships with the contact persons. And so if there's a situation that we can't necessarily help with because we don't have the resources available, maybe we just don't have the personnel with the credentials to handle or to work with the student to where they can feel successful on the other side of that particular struggle that they're going through, we can pick up the phone. Hold on real quick. Let me call Suzanne, or let me call Gerald, or let me call John. I think they have something that they can help you with. Let me connect you with them. And so that's what we have to do sometimes, because we don't have all the resources that we would like. And that's the adapting. to the personnel and the resources that we have. And so those are some things that we do. You know, we have a bountiful food pantry. We have a bountiful clothes closet where we get donations, and we work with our regional food bank, and we try to make sure that students are aware of these things. And we've even expanded our hours. So it's, you know, it's not perfect, but like we have to adapt to our students' needs, and we have to adapt based upon what we can do. But it's not a no, we can't help you. It's a let me see how we can help you in maybe a different way than what we would like to, or initially you thought that we could.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, sort of that yes and energy, right? Kind of trying to meet everything with the yes, and the and is maybe how we can do that with you, right? How we can do that with you. And I think I will say that we'll get into this let's see what we got next year. Yeah, this is perfect. Talk a little bit. I will say that I think one of the things that we really have enjoyed and about the partnership and working with you all is that you are willing to think outside the box, right? Like, you are not stuck in the way we do it, or the way we did it, or the way we even wish we could do it. But like, right, like we have a demand on campus. We have actually resourcing. How can we best put that resourcing to meet this mental health support demand? Let's think creatively, right? Counselors are hard to find, or perhaps there isn't the diversity of counselor or availability that's ideal. So let's talk a little bit about how you all have, right, adapted. Adapted. So these are some of the goals, and I'd love to know, like, take us behind the curtain a little bit. How you all made, you know, even the idea of, okay, there's an idea to explore a third party vendor, or this, like, how did you go about vetting, researching? Kevin, maybe start with you, since I know this was your sort of passion. And then you got Chris on board, and then Chris, who did you need to get on board, right? So walk us through how you made it happen.
Well, with the not being able to get our counselor because of I guess a shortage of counselors, or the availability of counselors, it had me looking at different options, and there were several online vendors that we looked at. And the one that I actually recommended from the beginning was Better Mind, because of the way that it's done, where you buy these sessions, you pay for sessions and not for the entire campus who's not going to use the sessions. So so when I saw that, you know, that this was a more flexible plan, that's when I think I went to Chris and I said, we need this, and here's what I think here's the company I think we need to go with.
Okay, that's Kevin's perspective. Let me tell you.
Yes, you tell me.
So this is Kevin. What do the applications look like? Chris, we don't have that many. Chris, we might have one. We're gonna interview. All right. Okay, tell me how it goes. How'd it go, Kevin? Oh, they were the perfect fit. Okay, when they gonna start? They declined the offer. Okay, let's put it back out there. Okay, all right. Kevin, how we doing? We don't have any applicants. Kevin, why don't we have any applicants? I don't know. Okay, let's reach out to some people. Let's reach out to some contacts. Let's find out what's going on in the private sector. Chris, you're not paying enough. I'll try to see what I can do. HR, we not paying enough. Well, Chris, this is what the salary band says. It's like, okay, we got to be equitable, and you know, we have to manage their credentials and how much experience they have, and how long they've been at the college. Okay, I'm trying to hire somebody. Chris, I'm sorry. This is what we got. This is what we can do. All right, Kevin. Okay, do we have any more applicants? No, we don't have any more applicants. Okay, we're gonna have to figure out something. All right, let me talk to some people. All right, Kevin, you talk to some people. All right, we got some people going virtual. All right, how much does virtual cost? Okay, all right, how much does it cost for salary and benefits? This much. How much it costs for Better Mind? This much. I said, okay, all right. Let's go. Okay, let's look at it. Let's see what they got. All right. And so that's Chris Snoddy's perspective. All right. All right. The other thing is say, okay, Kevin, what are the students saying? Are they satisfied with our services? Yeah, satisfied. Okay, give me the demographics. All right. Okay, well, what about this population? Why are we having less than this population? Well, some feel like it's not comfortable speaking with somebody that looks different from them. Okay, what does Better Mind do? All right, options. I like options. Less money, options, and we can serve more students. Let's go. I'm just being real, child.
I love both. Look, that is and that's the goal of these forums partly, right? Because that's the real truth. It's very easy to kind of gloss over the truth and make it look simple and easy, but that's also just a tremendous amount of time. You're funny, Chris, but that's a lot of time for both of you that has nothing to do in that with serving your students that day, right? This is like the classic administrative time suck, and you're just trying to get those supports in place for your students so that they can succeed. So it's
at least
yeah.
I didn't even mention the wait list. The wait list that, at the same time Kevin's saying we don't have any applicants, we got a growing wait list at the time.
So you've got this that's right.
Got 50.
A wait list, no applicants, and we have counselors that were dwindling at the time. One of them went to private practice. All right, so
right.
So
this is not looking good.
It was an anomaly year, and I'm hoping that does ring true as an anomaly, but it definitely hadn't been a year like we had experienced, and so it was a perfect opportunity to go ahead and say, let's try this out, and students took to it, and so we have to continue to adapt, even once since we've had it in place, we're going to have to adapt again. So
yes, I love what you're I'll to give a little framing to exactly what you're talking about, which is the model. And I'll tell you, Chris, part of the reason that Better Mind is structured in the way that it is to all that you've spoken to, which is the unpredictability of the challenges institutions are facing, whether it's staffing shortages or demand. And actually every year looks different. We've had partners who've had tragedies happen on campus. And that was a very different year to support students than the year prior. And how can the support systems, right? How can those kind of ebb and flow with the institution so that the resourcing is not wasted, right? I mean, that I think is the real tragedy, especially for places like community colleges, which are serving such important groups of students. How can we make sure that every dollar that we spend, especially on support services, actually does the work of support? So this is just so individual counseling and the well-being workshops are the pieces that we're actually, do you all have the support line as well?
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah, that's right. That's right. So these are all kind of different pieces that, again, the support line is the kind of in the moment. I am in crisis. Who do I call? Individual counseling and the well-being workshops are things you're going to schedule and attend. And Chris, this is exactly what you're talking about. So there's you purchase a bucket of sessions. It has nothing to do with your enrollment or, per student. And then you can allocate that care to the individual students at your judgment, Kevin, at your judgment, Chris. And then, because we know that every year is so different, you could always purchase more to add to your bucket in a year when you go, oh, shoot, we want to, let's keep that wait list down. Let's buy 50 more, right? Let's add more support. Or you find, maybe like you said, Kevin, right? Maybe the students are doing well. Like there is no issue. They don't need the support. Well, let's just roll that over to the next year where we don't know what awaits us. So that's the approach here. And just a little kind of, here's some initial learnings. We launched really for the winter and spring. So we launched in early December. You all purchased a bucket of 300 sessions. And then when we pulled this from your campus dashboard a few weeks ago, this is how it had kind of panned out. Any commentary on utilization, anything that surprised you, or?
I think that, you know, it's worked well. I think as the semester waned on, you know, I think people were used to the promotions, and so we have to look at how we are grabbing the attention of our new students and returning students for the fall, and make sure that we are getting in front of them. And we have, you know, weekly emails and newsletters that go out as far as our campus in general is concerned. We have television monitors all around the campus we put out. We have social media that runs our ads promoting the service as well. But sometimes you may need a testimonial. Sometimes the orientation, and so those things that we'll revisit, you know, coming up for the fall, to make sure that it's out there again and it's refreshed. But these are the things that these are the materials that we put out. Those are samples of the television monitor prompts that we put on there. Then as well as with the social media. And then again, they worked well. And then you could see, you know, I think in that last slide I talked about in April, which is, you know, right before finals, you'll see a little spike up from March. And then obviously as the semester closed out, we get very, very slow. It's like a ghost town sometimes around here in our neck of the woods for the summertime. But just remind the students, hey, we still have this service available to you. And so that's one of the things, you know, you can't just leave things and say that they're good, but making sure that you're always keeping track of things and refresh them so people are aware. So
yeah. And I will
jump in quickly, Elisa. I know we're like tag teaming, this might be awkward, but one of the things I think that makes Chris and Kevin, what you all are offering in your philosophy of care, is that your offices work so well together. And I think on this call, we often know that sometimes counseling services and centers feel very siloed, right? And so folks are looking for more support at the central office, right? At student services, to say, like, in order for us to drive awareness, but also utilization, this takes cross-campus, cross-institutional collaboration and support. So I know there are folks on this call, some partners as well, who are saying, how have you all built this cross-campus initiative and collaboration between you two to really drive this as this is a part of our institutional student success strategy? Any tips or tricks that you have about that?
Well, it helps me a lot because Chris is highly supportive of counseling just from the beginning. He and I talked about, you know, we talked about counseling constantly and frequently, and so his support has helped a great deal to bridge that gap between what I do over here in the counseling and disability office versus what he does with all of the services that he's over. So I have to say that his commitment has helped me a great deal with being able to get what our students need as far as services.
Kevin keeps me informed. With disability services and counseling services, it's not a one-person job, and so I try to make sure that, you know, tell Kevin I appreciate him. Need to do more actually, but that's something that it's a collaborative effort. My background is heavily in student conduct, where I've worked a lot with counselors for a long time. Title IX, student life, you know, physical fitness, all those areas see a natural link to mental health. And so it's not difficult for me to understand that the support that is needed for students as someone who battled with suicide ideation myself, when going through a divorce, and struggling when I was a student, with being a hothead. So all those different things, remind me that our students need constant help. One of the things for our particular institution, which is different from me in these past 5 years, is that I'm not working at a residential campus. And so there's benefits, pros and cons, when you're trying to do outreach, it's a struggle. And so our main conduit is the instructors, the faculty. And so getting in front of Dean's Council, making sure that they're on our chat team, making sure that we're having conversation, whether it's in a hallway or in a board meeting, with our vice president or associate vice presidents for academic affairs. We have to be in front of them. Kevin has taught at the college as well, and so the relationships, he knows the importance of us being able to partner with our instructors, because otherwise sometimes it's hard to catch students where they're thinking, get in the parking lot, take my class, get back to the parking lot so I can go take care of other responsibilities. So yeah, we have to work together. We have to.
Thank you both for sharing just about your personal experiences. And obviously we as your partner just see that show up in how you are showing up on your campus. So no surprise there. And then just before we head into the Q&A, last couple of learnings here, which is really interesting, thinking again to this targeted approach. Now we're only looking at the winter spring here, so not a surprise that the session distribution is about two per student, and then that range, right? Majority of students have had one, and then there was that one student and who's been able to be supported through 6, which is really very beautiful. Because who knows what's going on in their life, right? And what that particular presenting concern is. And so that you're able to provide that kind of personalized care and support, I think is really important and really admirable. So any commentary here? I'm curious how you came to, because we got so many partners on the call here. How'd you all come to decide on just that initial number of credits to give students, right? 1 credit is just one 50-minute counseling session. How did you land on that? I know it's something a lot of our partners are kind of working back and forth on,
Well, we looked at our own data to see how many sessions a student would come for typically. And then we relied on Emily and other people there to give us information on what other colleges were doing, and so we just kind of talked about it and decided on 4 being a good kind of starting point, knowing full well that we're going to have those more who use 1 or 2, and those few who are going to use 5 or 6. But being able to balance it out that way.
Yeah, that's right. That's the beauty of the bucket, right? Because for someone who uses none, they just go back in the bucket. So
we've had a few that have used up their 4 and said, hey, can I get some more? And Kevin, I'm gonna throw you under the bus, Kevin, real quick. Because you threw me under the bus. So Kevin has graciously said, Chris, what do you think? And so I'm like, oh Lord, okay, well, obviously we don't want to turn a student down, but we also want to make sure that they understand that we can't extend for a longer period of time. Than we have to prepare for the whole campus. And so obviously they're not going to hear that whole explanation, but what we've done is given them 2 more and then encourage them to speak with their counselor about connecting with one of our local resources so they can partner to get a lot more long-term care. So it's not a no, it's yes, here's two, but please keep in mind, this is meant for short term, and we're here to
Yes.
support you as you seek out long term. And please feel free to come into the to the office if you'd like to as well.
Yes. Well, that's more of that yes and spirit. And I think that even that, even the transition is very, again, supportive in that it could be they spend those sessions with that counselor, even talking about based on what they need. It could be, this could be a person that would benefit from ongoing therapy for a very long time. And just even normalizing that with that counselor, right? That counselor being able to normalize and say, yeah, you know what? You got a lot going on in your life and in your family. Let's find you a resource that you can meet with every week or every 2 weeks during this season of your life. When you need, I love the yes and spirit behind how you all are doing this. I'm going to move us just to a few minutes. Let's see of Q&A, but tell me this, if you had one key takeaway, we'll do Kevin and then Chris for your peers here today. From all that we've talked about today, what would you want someone to remember? Kevin?
I'm probably going to sound like a PSA, but honestly, I think when we went with Better Mind, it was the best thing for our campus because of that ease of distribution of credits rather than having to go with paying for everyone at the whole school when everyone at the whole school is not going to utilize it. I think for me, that was key for us, and I think it might be key for other people to know as well. But that's kind of what I would say would be the one thing to really think about is how we're able to use those credits and help as many students as we can.
Thanks, Kevin. Chris, key takeaway for your peers today?
Similar to what Kevin said, I think just being able to assess your situation and listening to your students' needs, identifying, surveying. What's the phrase that I'm looking for? Form. Y'all know what I'm talking about. When you get students together in one room, you ask them questions. For some reason,
focus group.
Thank you. Focus group. Oh, maybe I'm not focusing.
No. You're good. You're good.
My little dad joke for the day. So anyway, the being able to assess that and pivot with your students' needs. I do believe that this service that we have here allows us to do that. They've been flexible with us, and hopefully, y'all will continue to be flexible with us and in serving our students. So.
Yeah, no, that's our mission and our model. So appreciate you both sharing that. And let's get into Emily. If you've got some Q&A or questions teed up here, let's segue into that for the next few minutes. And I was just going to offer for anyone, if you're wanting to understand more about the best kind of model that would support your campus and students, you might find this report helpful. It's summarizing a lot of what we've talked about today with some recommendations. So you can scan this.
My little dad joke for the day. So anyway, the being able to assess that and pivot with your students' needs. I do believe that this service that we have here allows us to do that. They've been flexible with us, and hopefully, y'all will continue to be flexible with us and in serving our students. So.
Yeah, no, that's our mission and our model. So appreciate you both sharing that. And let's get into Emily. If you've got some Q&A or questions teed up here, let's segue into that for the next few minutes. And I was just going to offer for anyone, if you're wanting to understand more about the best kind of model that would support your campus and students, you might find this report helpful. It's summarizing a lot of what we've talked about today with some recommendations. So you can scan this. I think Alex, you can also drop that into the chat. But let's go into some Q&A. let's see here. And Alex, maybe you want to help facilitate that? I'll stop sharing. How about that? I'll stop sharing.
I think, you know, we're good on the Q&A. I think what was happening in the chat is a lot of folks were
Okay.
sharing what was they're doing at their institutions and their philosophy of care, which I think is really exciting to see that camaraderie happening there.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, I guess I'll give us 4 minutes back. We started at least 4 minutes late. So thanks for everyone for your patience at the front end. Thank you so much, Kevin and Chris today. And for anyone if you'd like to learn more about Better Mind, just drop your response in the poll. We always want to be thoughtful too about following up with folks where this is timely or of interest. So I will leave that up for you, and you can let us know, and we'll reach out. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day, and hopefully you can take care of yourself a little bit over the summer. We know that's something that's also really important on campuses today, taking care of the people that are taking care of the people, the students. So maybe find some rest and restoration. So take care, everyone. Bye-bye.